Good morning, everybody, and welcome to InsureTalk61. My name is Carl, and it's my great privilege to be the MC and host of today's session. Since our previous InsureTalk, I turned 52, and this is the 6th birthday of InsureTalk as a series. And it reminded me that whether you're 6, 52, in fact, whatever age, insurance has a massive and positive impact on all of us. I recently read a quote by a good friend of mine, Justin, from I2, who reaffirmed and established that insurance certainly is not a grudge purchase. In fact, without insurance, nothing would happen in our economy. And so together with the thousands of people that are here today, we proudly assert the value of insurance. And thank you very much for joining us. Our theme for today is 6 years strong, connecting the future of insurance. And our event partner is Global Choices. Global Choices also are celebrating a major milestone this year, 25 years. A really impressive birthday anniversary for Global Choices. And for all that time, they've been adding immense value within the insurance industry. Global Choices Lifestyle has been the trusted emergency backbone of South Africa's insurance industry, protecting more than 3 million insured members through branded emergency call centers, cutting-edge digital platforms, and live video streaming assistance that responds in real time around the clock. Now, Global Choices don't simply answer calls. They engineer the moments that define trust, from the first distress call to the final claims resolution. And their solutions are built for insurers who understand that customer experience is the product, and that loyalty is really earned in the moments that matter most for policyholders. And as the industry has evolved over 25 years, Global Choices have continued to combine their empathy, technology, and 25 years of operational excellence to turn emergency response into a competitive advantage for every client they partner with. And on a personal level, many people here today, literally of the thousands of people, many of them will personally know the founder and head of this business, Wimpie van der Merwe, who alongside his team really passionately live the words that I have just read around empathy, about really wanting to make a difference and always being there for the insurance industry. So to Wimpie, you and your team, congratulations on your 25th birthday, and thank you very much for joining us today on our 6th birthday. Now, 6 is not a massive number, but as a birthstone, the one that springs to mind is the amethyst. So amethyst is the gemstone for a 6th anniversary, and this is not really a special stone, I suppose. It's deep purple, but it is associated with clarity, with calmness and protection. This, of course, all comes from our fabulous friend in AI. So it's not flashy, it's not loud, but it's quietly valuable. The kind of thing that only really makes sense once you've been around for a while. And for me, that felt a bit right when I think about InsureTalk in 6 years. We've moved beyond the early energy, and I was reflecting with Llewellyn, as the co-founder of InsureTalk, with the first one 6 years ago, where I swore. Llewellyn says kindly that I didn't realize that we were live. I probably did. And to where we are now, 6 years later. But we've moved beyond that early energy of getting something off the ground. And what we have now is more considered. But it remains a space for insurance professionals to connect, to learn, to add value to the insurance industry. And so thank you very much for all of you who have walked the journey with us for 6 years. The number 6 also reminded me about 6 degrees of separation. And I think as the world has advanced, it's often 3 or 2 degrees even. But on 6 degrees of separation, it reminded me how closely connected the insurance industry is. Whether brokers or insurers, underwriters, UMAs, claims technicians, suppliers, we really are all connected in this industry. And what one part does reflects on the other, which really is something very special. Talking of special, I'd like to introduce our first speaker for the day. And she is no stranger to the industry because she's got over 20 years of experience. It is none other than the executive at Elite, Thandiwe Tumela. And Thandiwe was very kind because, of course, my pronunciation of her surname, failing the click miserably, is very poor. But Thandiwe, as I said, is no stranger to us. She began her career in marine and liability underwriting in 2007 And since then, she has built a broad expertise spanning bancassurance, broker environments, insurance operations, cell captives, and regulatory and business engagements across Africa, giving her a well-rounded and a pragmatic view of the insurance industry. Since joining Old Mutual Insure in 2022, Thandiwe has played a key role in strengthening Elite's operational foundation, enhancing its governance, delivery excellence, and the broker experience. As of 1 April, she assumed the leadership responsibility as Executive Elite, following the retirement of the also very well-known and fabulous Tarina Flock at the end of March. And this move ensured continuity while also focusing on Elite's positioning in the high net worth market. She's known for her decisive leadership style, energy, you'll definitely see that in the presentation, and her ability to turn strategy into execution. Thandiwe balances her professional life as a new mum, an avid goalkeeper on the netball court, and also the only human on the staff that is micromanaged by two very assertive cats. Thandiwe, we're looking very much forward to your presentation this morning, and the topic is navigating leadership transitions, succession, stability, and what comes next. Over to Thandiwe.
Thank you, Carl. Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone can hear. I would first like to express my excitement and honor to be part of InsureTalk's 6th birthday edition. Again, happy birthday to you, Carl, and happy birthday to InsureTalk. Today, actually, when I was preparing for today's edition, I was thinking a lot about InsureTalk and the fact that the journey started during COVID. InsureTalk and the leadership behind was able to actually take the opportunity and run with it, with a business that has grown and has become an industry standard. All of us log in, all of us engage, all of us look forward to all presentation and continuous learning all the time. So I really look forward to today. My topic is, of course, about leadership transition, and at the base is about change. So being able to be part of a panel and in a platform, in an edition such as InsureTalk that understands change, I'm really excited, and I hope you find today's presentation insightful, and I hope we can engage well. Questions will be in the Q&A, and when I get the opportunity, I will be able to respond at the end of the presentation. So as Carol has mentioned, I have started off there. I have started off as a new mom. This is just a personal share as we navigate a presentation about change. You would all know what it's like having a new member in your family. I came back to the corporate world in March, and during that March, it was also a transitional time. It was a lot of handover with Tarina, who retired at the end of March. And also in April, I was stepping into a new role as an executive for Elite. Now you can imagine this is a huge transitional phase for myself personally. Hence, I thought, let me start with the personal bit. It's also about personal growth that I'm looking forward to. So this really informed my approach in what I decided to be a topic for InsureTalk. Now, succession in itself is planned, it's deliberate, it's intentional. I'm fortunate enough to be succeeding a woman, Tarina Flock, who's a formidable leader, who understood that succession has to be done with intent, continuously, over time, over years, to be able for the organization, for our markets, for our intermediaries, for our partners to understand that there is business continuity. In that, there is a mutual respect of leadership in future, but myself as well. There is a respect of the legacy that's been built from the type of leadership that Tarina has had. So over years, the discussion of succession, the discussion of a way forward has always been in the forefront, led by Tarina. This has been continuously communicated over years, over time, showing that Elite had planned this. So the change management process is not something that's done as a reaction to retirement, but it's been a business plan in order for us to fulfill our strategy for a very long time coming. Again, this is a testament of the woman that I'm succeeding, which is Tarina. And, we do miss her and we hope we continue to make her proud. So leadership and the succession plan at Elite is not a solo act. It wasn't done in isolation. Elite, as a high net worth insurer, is part of the Old Mutual Insure Group. And I'm fortunate to say the group itself played a pivotal role in terms of institutional support. From the seniorest executive, all our senior executives, our new MD, Mr. Saul Abrams, our new chief executive, Marvelous Rakundi, our senior executive, Nicholas Dempsey, including HR executives, learning and development with Eva. They've all played a pivotal role in the transition and a focus on succession planning. This makes a huge impact on how successful that change management is and how successful my transition has been. This has included leadership, mentorship, executive coaching. For example, I'm an alumni for an executive leadership program called She Excels. Comprehensive, holistic, one-on-one coaching, health management, leadership skills, business acumen. And again, this is supported by the group with continuous leadership investment through ad hoc coaching, thought leadership, ensuring that we participate in platforms such as InsureTalk and other industry initiatives, ensures that we are focused on continuous development, and it empowers the leadership, including myself, as I take on the role of executive and lead at Elite as we move forward. Now, the group being in support of succession in this transitional time, and I bring back, I'm coming back as a new mom, I'm also transitioning. But what it shows is an alignment to the King 4 principles about sustainability and continuity. Now, I'm a person you would know from my last interaction at InsureTalk. I do like risk management. I do like governance. Those are the tools I really use in everyday leadership and management. But in King 4, specifically, Principle 7 and 8, it speaks about role clarity, delegation of authority, succession planning, and a leadership development pipeline. Now, in the last 2 slides, I touch on to this. I gave examples of all the articles over time, over years, consistent, continuous, speaking about succession plan, speaking about capability, speaking about acceptance of change, speaking about leadership, delegation, and how we all interact. These actually all speak to King 4. What it does is it highlights institutional strength. We are fortunate to have had a leader such as Tarina, but we're also fortunate to have the backing of the Old Mutual Insurance Group. What that does is that the institutional strength ensures that continuity. What King 4 actually reminds us is that leadership is not about continuity of people, but leadership is about continuity of purpose, of value, of decisions. As leaders, if we plan sufficiently, if we anticipate the change sufficiently, we create enough pipeline of people, of change management, of softer skills of resilience to make sure that our organization, our business, our products is able to withstand change, that irregardless if it's Tarina and it's Tandiwe stepping in, there is continuity because there is institutional and intentional strength that is focused on that continuation. And what that does, it builds long-term resilience for ourselves as an organization, for ourselves as the people who are in the various teams at Elite. Lucky for us, other than Tarina retiring, there really hasn't been changes or moves within the Elite environment, all supporting the transition of myself taking over and ensuring we continue the legacy that has been built for Elite and forward. Now, it is April, and I am starting this new chapter with Elite and with group support. We can't ignore the geopolitical uncertainty. Now, this is another nod to that change is always the one constant. Personally, for myself, it feels like so much has been happening, but every time I watch the news, I am looking at what's happening in the world. And as much as I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but us being in the business of insurance, we think about, okay, how will this impact us? How will this impact our operations? How this will impact how we service our policyholders? And how do we interact with our business partners? Of course, we've all started to see trickling in claimed inflation pressure throughout the supply chain in short-term insurance. We're seeing or we're anticipating increased costs because of what's happening wider in the world. It's made very interesting discussions at networking events every time I see intermediaries or anytime I have discussions and meetings. And in the background of this, we're also still anticipating a rapid AI adoption. So we are in a world experiencing rapid change. You know, often sometimes we might look, it might feel overwhelming, but if I take lessons in how the succession plan, then you need to start anticipating and seeing what is happening and what can we do about it. So technology being key or being a very prominent topic of AI and automation. For me, technology, we can't run away from it. As much as we said, you know, change is the one constant, adoption of AI and automation is also almost a foregone conclusion. We have to find ways, but within that change, of course, there's always uncertainty. And for us, and for me personally, the focus is on that ethics and judgment of it. The human touch, human decision-making must always be in the forefront. So we can't change the mass adoption or implementation of AI, but we can show that decision-making, judgments, and the ethics behind are driven by humans. And this is where leaders, and this is where I myself would like to always participate in engagement to ensure that the human is at the core of decision making, and we can allow AI and automation to make ease of business so that we can service our policyholders, we can engage with our partners more efficiently, but at the core, it's human decisions and directions that are addressing that. So what this means is, as much as it seems as there is many balls up in the air, there's lots of change happening, geopolitical tensions, there is also then opportunity we should lean on. instead of fear. Just like InsureTalk saw the opportunity during COVID in 2020, and we are sitting 6 years later with a thriving business that's at the core of our calendars, the change that is happening in the world, uncomfortable as it might be, it also presents us with opportunities. That's the leadership stance we should all be focused on in our various levels, in our various roles. Now, that's the world. And again, I'm coming in 1st of April, executive for Elite. I thought it was important that we go back to when I joined, which was in May 2022. So what we've done together, and this is during a time, this is hand in hand when I was supporting the leadership of Tarina Flock, when I was the Chief Operations Officer, we've brought about operational stability. We went through various changes, remedial actions. We really struggled through high loss ratios, through climate change, but we also saw on the other side, having gone through all of that, an operational stability in how we report, our focus and investment on automation and data. We realized governance maturity again, making sure that our reporting, our transparency, our matrices are aligned with best practices in regulation and the market as well. Data and pricing optimization. As we said, I'm fortunate, I'm part of the Old Mutual, we are part of the Old Mutual group. So we get to get the benefit of pricing optimizations, as we've seen an improvement in our new business pricing and renewal pricing, data that allows us to make quick decision, quicker claims turnaround, quicker interaction in risk profiling, in anticipating future challenges so that we can proactively problem solve. Stability in operations, and having been with Elite since 2002, having gone through that remedial action, and in my previous slide, I say, but we have now realized operational stability. What that has translated, the end result was a strong service delivery. Having had intent through leadership of Tarina, through our assistants, we were able to focus on all the service matrices, streamlining, realigning, making sure the wording is where it's supposed to be, our service is where to be. Disciplined underwriting, that always is forward-looking, but taking proactive learning, climate change, the losses we got there were things we had never seen before. But where that puts us in 2026 April is that we have that muscle memory. We have that data. It's something that's included in our price optimization because we went through a hard cycle and we improved. We chose to jump in, improve during that hard time. And then we were able to realize record performance 2024 and 2025, which I'm extremely proud of. And it was a legacy that Tarina ended off her retirement in her career on a high with record performance for Elite as a high net worth insurance provider in the short-term space in South Africa. Now, stability for us, what it creates is a confidence to act. When personally, as a person and as a group, as a company, as Elite, as a management team, having gone through very volatile changes, hard changes, you're anticipating change, you have gone through climate change, you're anticipating AI adoption, but Because in the past, you've already invested in IT and data, you've started that change management, it brings about confidence to act. I was very happy to hear, Carol mention the many years I've been in the short-term industry. But what that shows is that when there is a deliberate and intentional leadership, top down, to make sure there is qualified individuals who've got the expertise, who have gone through the motions with the company. When we sit in April, we have a confidence to act forward because we've gone through a lot, but we've got the expertise, we've got the group support, we've got the IT investment, we've got the investment for people and people development. It gives us a confidence to act. It also gives us a capacity to grow. And growth we've seen very positively so in 2026 because of price optimization, because service and continuous improvement has been so well embedded, especially in the last 2 years where we actually saw the results come out. What that places us is in a fortunate position of being complexity ready. Now, as I said, the world seems to be having multiple balls up in the air. There's lots that's happening all at once. In that complexity, the niche and the direction and the leadership that's required is to find a vision, to find your opportunity, and to make intentional, decisive plans, and to continuously follow up with them. And it will make sure that you will see the other side of the complexity when the results also start to show. So what comes on next is, making sure we build on a very strong legacy. One, the group itself, the Old Mutual Group, Old Mutual Insure, a very strong brand in the industry that is resilient, that has been, throughout the years. So it's to build on that, understanding that there's innovation, flexibility, challenges that are ahead. But the differentiator is to anticipate those changes, make appropriate plans according to what might be in your control, what's not in your control. Make those contingency plans. Make sure the leadership team around you is also informed and everyone is focused on continuous development. So constructive feedback is always good, but what that does is every day we are building on a legacy that has been well built. We're growing with intention. We have learned from climate change initiatives. We have learned from mistakes. It is important to know that organizations and companies are run by people. What's important is that every day when we show up for our policyholders, for our business partners, constructive feedback, anticipation of challenges, proper reflection thereafter, if done correct and done with intent, continuously and consistently, you will start to grow with intentionality. And of course, the running theme at the bottom is always driving through change. There is a senior executive who made a speech that, stayed with me in my subconscious, is that when there is challenges, instead of sitting back and allowing fear to take dominance, is jumping into the problem. Often this is where you find creative problems. This is where you find creative opportunities. I know I keep repeating myself, but this is what I meant as I was preparing for today's presentation. In short talk, we are on the 6th year a birthday edition, through an opportunity when technology, online platforms were dealing with COVID, people were unable to interact, there was the opportunity. So in the future, rapid AI adoption, challenges in the world, although those exist within that, there is opportunity. And if there is strong leadership and there is strong institutional support, definitely you can translate those opportunities into tangible wins and growth. So leadership mindset is based on energy. Energy to focus on opportunities, energy on what's ahead, optimism. Optimism to know that all challenges can be translated into something positive, to be able to manage what is within and what is outside of our control. But at the base of it, without repeating myself, is the courage always to embrace change. I'm fortunate that at Elite, the change has been managed very well throughout the years via Terena, via the organization, through executive programs, through everyday, day-to-day experience the last 4 years, through the strong technical ability and operational ability of our management teams at Elite, through people stepping up and extending their capabilities. What that means is together, we are all shaping the future together. We are making sure there's continuity in leadership into the business as a lead, into the brand, without a focus on the individual, but rather the institution and the value and the service we aim to provide. And understanding, change is always the one constant. My presentation will stop here. I think what I will do is I will check on the Q&A to see if there's any comments or any questions or clarity so that we may interact for a little bit more. Okay. Thank you for the comments. I can see there are no questions in the Q&A. Thank you very much for the kind comments on the chat. And I will hand over back to Carl.
Thank you so much, Tandiwe. There were lots of comments and questions, and there'll be more throughout the morning, and also for all of those people watching this session of InsureTalk, which goes onto our YouTube channel. So there'll be lots of opportunity to engage. So definitely check those out. And if you've got any more questions, please send them through. You can also tag us on social media. For those who haven't registered for the future InsureTalks, please do so at insuretalk.co.za. Tandiwe, that was so interesting for me to listen to. And I must also tell you that I sneakily put in a quick phone call to your former colleague who sounded like you had her in tears. I think a big part of leadership is also acknowledging those that have come before us and on whose shoulders we stand, and also building up the people whom we have responsibility towards that will lead this industry forward. And so I enjoyed your presentation, a balance about, very specific to Elite, but broader relevance within the insurance industry. So thank you very much for that. Also great to see some comments, some disagree, some agree. I loved a comment from one of our broker friends who was telling us our AI adds no value and must stay far away from his clients. And while some of us strongly disagree with that, it's good to have these different opinions because that's how we're all going to learn and ultimately make sure that we earn and deliver the best value to our clients, which is our responsibility. Next up, We've got a speaker that in some ways I thought reminded me a little bit about my career, because they've been in and out of insurance, very heavily in insurance, then tangentially, and a really interesting person who I look forward to introducing. So Kebafense Mogoshi is the Business Development Executive at Achisanang Insurance Administrators. And Keba's career began in the retail sector in 2004, which established a strong foundation in customer engagement and commercial awareness. In 2010, a transition into the built environment marked the start of a professional journey as an architectural draftsman. And then a pivotal shift occurred in late 2015, leading into the insurance industry. And so, like many people, found their way into the insurance industry. And since then, it has remained the core focus of Keba's professional development. Early roles in insurance were centered on sales, initially within long-term insurance, before moving into the short-term space. And it's great that we have so many people from long-term, short-term, health, and other parts of the industry at InsureTalk. This progressed into a client retention role, offering a more comprehensive understanding of the customer life cycle. A key milestone included contributing to the establishment of a short-term insurance division within a fintech environment. And there is a lot happening in the fintech, insurtech space, as we all know. And this demonstrated both entrepreneurial thinking on Keba's part, but also the ability to adapt in a rapidly evolving sector. And then, following a colleague's encouragement, or perhaps just seeing the fabulous Ria Net all over the place promoting the Insurance Apprentice, in season 10, Keba was the 4th placed contestant, a remarkable and wonderful achievement. And this then led to a role as a business development executive and insurance administrator, and this further strengthened Keba's relationship management. And I think what this says for me is that this interesting and broad journey has transformed a once perhaps simplistic view of insurance into one that is shaped by strategic interest and more effective communication about the future of our industry. So we look forward, Keba, to your topic, which is agility and microinsurance, from a grudge payment to a way of life. Over to you.
Thank you, Carl. Good morning, everyone. I really hope that you enjoyed Tandiwa's presentation as much as I have. For those who don't know me, my name is Kebafense Mogoshi, a married man to a very loving wife. Trust me, I have to say that I don't want to sleep on the couch tonight. And I have been blessed with 3 very, very beautiful children. Now, as the journey has said, I started in retail, went into the built environment. I've been almost all over, but the one thing that has been key for me is that somehow I have been in an industry where I have to think of things that will service clients. I've never been or had work where I wouldn't service clients. And what I realized when I was in the fintech space is things are changing. However, sometimes they're changing in silos and the gap is growing. Certain styles of leadership that could be effective in traditional environments are not implemented there, but I believe they could make a change. And this is beyond just having the bottom line. And that's what informed my topic today. Yes. Now, we know what is happening currently with the insurance industry. Everyone strongly believes this is a grudge payment. They hate talking about insurance. You're sitting at a bride, a funeral, at a wedding, and the only thing they can tell you is how expensive it is, how things went south, how claims went wrong. And this is because people are not exposed to insurance at an early age. Just to paint a picture, think of a boy who grows up in a rural area and then goes to varsity, buys their first vehicle, and the first experience of insurance is that short-term product that they have for their car. They know nothing else about insurance. They know nothing about financial products. They've never been exposed to them. And that is what is currently happening. And now, if he had not gone to varsity and been in an urban area and had stayed in rural areas, what would have happened to him? Now, I want us to look at this quote, and I will read it as is. This is from Bruce Lee. I've been living by this, I think, for the past 2 years. It says, empty your mind, be formless, shapeless, like water. If you put water into a cup, it becomes a cup. You put water into a bottle, and it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now, water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend. I would like you to hold on to this as we go through my presentation. Now, I didn't want to use the term agile leadership right at the beginning of the topic, purposely so, because when you take that and you say it's agile leadership, it removes the responsibility from the organization and it fails to implement or to place the seed that that agility that we speak about is more of a culture in an organization than it is a trait that should be with a leader. It should be from top down and also from bottom up. And the main reason why I'm passionate about it is that everything around it revolves around the customer. It is always about the customer. Yes, we do chase the bottom line. We don't have endless pits of money, but it always leans towards the customer. And then you have decentralized authority where if a quick decision has to be made, you don't have to wait for 2 weeks to get an answer. And for those that are in sales or onboarding, you know how frustrating this is and you know how quickly leads get cold. So having an agile type of style of leadership, and an agile style of culture and an environment actually takes care of that. And it builds trust too, because from junior staff to senior staff, there is that confidence that the right decisions will be made. The other thing that I like about it is the rapid iteration of products, the changes that have to be made. Don't wait for long. We can change the product, we can change the app, we can change our offering while still staying to the core values without having to wait for another 12 months. And by then, when you've went to market, people have already lost interest. And the cross-functional collaboration is even better. If you are in client services or onboarding, you don't have to schedule a meeting through managers to get advice from an actuary or to speak to a developer directly in order to find a solution. Now, just to bring us back here, the overview of insurance is when we underwrite, there are these complex processes that we have to do. There are these questions that you have to be asked. There's proposal forms. There's ITC, and the question is phrased in different ways. And at the end of the day, when you tell a person about it, they don't know what you're talking about. I would spot two provinces, but it's not limited to that, specifically the Eastern Cape and Limpopo province. They have larger rural areas that don't have insurance. And when you think about it, is mainly because of literacy, right? So now when your product is complex, people tend to trust you less. It leads to what I call GPS, and it's not global positioning system, but it is the grudge payment syndrome, that it feels like if I give you this money, I'm gambling, but I'm not protecting my future. Now, this has led to the volumes that are very largely uninsured. While there is a big concern about people in rural areas, if you think about it right now, stats show that just a little over 5 million owned houses are not insured. Penetration of insurance is higher on bonded houses and in urban areas. But most of the time in urban areas, it is when people do continue to pay insurance post-bond. But if you visit areas like Protea Glen, Protea North, which is in Soweto, you'd actually be surprised that when people settle their bond, they actually moved away from insurance. And it's because they feel that they do not see a need. But if you would remember, in the past few years, there were floods in Protea Glen. And what happens is people now have to take up loans, they have to cash up on investments just to recover from that. And also what is very costly is the distribution costs, right? You look at commission that Geba wants for distributing, the traveling costs, that beggar that he has to eat, especially if you send him to a rural areas. Brokers would look at what is it worth their while. As much as they want to make a difference, they have to keep their lights on. So this is just a summary of some of the things that are happening and are influencing why insurance has not penetrated some areas. Now, for those who don't know, but I believe everyone here knows, just with microinsurance, just keep in mind that these are minor products, your cell phones, these are your funeral covers. They are easy to underwrite. They've got low premiums. They are targeted at low-income individuals. They are not necessarily for elite clients. And Tadu, I hope you don't think that I'm taking a jab. Unfortunately, I could not find another word to use. However, what we find is this. Funeral insurance, although it is sitting at about 40 to 48% currently in terms of penetration, it is the one that is leading the way. People think more of what will happen when death occurs than what happens while I am still alive. And we need to change that as an industry so that people can have healthy lives. And the main reason why this happens is the funerals occur more, we see them more, we see hashes more. And then when it comes to the losses, we only see them periodically. This is during rainy seasons, or if something has happened, and if you do miss the news, then you will not see it. But funerals are very close to home. The challenge that is there is what I previously mentioned. If you check the acquisition costs, they're quite high. It takes an arm and a leg, and waiting to break even takes even longer, especially on the micro insurance side. When you also look at these rural areas, some of these homes are easily a kilometer away from each other. So it becomes very expensive for one person to go there and educate and acquire that business. And limited financial literacy is actually key. I mean, I was raised by my grandfather and my grandmother in my childhood. We had to move to Limpopo from Pimville, and they were both on pension. My grandmother had to take a taxi from Limpopo to Pimville in order for her to collect pension and then return. And this was a 3-day siesta, if you could call it that, because she would have to leave the day before collecting pension, get there, wait in queue, get her pension, and then from there go back to Limpopo. Now you're asking yourself why I'm telling you the story. After the passing of my grandfather, who was very stubborn and who believed that banks are actually scammers and never wanted any cent to be in a bank account or to even open a bank account, my grandmother then approached the bank and opened the bank account. Now, what was a 3-day journey changed into being a 3-hour journey return, because all she had to do was to go to Grondesdal to withdraw money. It even became better when Plaza was built. She could easily go there and withdraw money. And what we want to do is to remove this very familiar term that financial services providers are scammers. It is quite remote in certain areas that when you stay in an urban area, it seems over-exaggerated, but it is not. And then the other challenge that is there is the people that we distribute to who are in rural areas. Very few of them have consistent incomes. The incomes are very irregular. They're very seasonal. Some are dependent on the crops that they have, the vegetables that they have in their yards, and they sell these on the side of the road, and that is when they earn an income. Some are dependent on odd jobs. So while we are going to consider taking this there, which I encourage that we do, I'd like us to also consider these inconsistent income patterns in order to find solutions. Now, I've told you about microinsurance. I've told you about the challenges. I've told you a little bit about agile leadership, and you're wondering how the two marry. For me, I say marriage is the answer between the two. And the reason being is the environments are different. We may say they're rural, but depending on where you go, the environments are different. The culture is different. And if you do introduce something that is a leadership style and a culture that is not heavily rigid, it becomes very easy to tell a story anywhere you are. Remember, if you speak to a man using their mother tongue, you speak to their heart. So if I'm not fluent in Zulu and I go to KZN and I try to sell there, it becomes very hard. What I say does not make sense. Vice versa, if someone who is closer comes through to Limpopo and I speak fluent Pedi, they try to sell to me, it does not work. So marriage is the answer here. And the reason being is it's going to quicken the market entry. It's going to be very fast. The distribution costs will be a little less. And the reason being is you won't have this traditional setup of an institution where there has to be a branch and a manager and all of those. You will be able to adapt to each province. And then that way you stand a higher chance of a wider reach. However, this is going to be a little latent because if we are going to approach this using an agile style type of leadership, we might have to start by working in silos. And the reason why I say that is we need to test first. We test, we learn, we go back, we say, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? Is the message there? Do the people understand what we are saying to them? When we tell them that should it rain, your house is gone and you are wiped out, does it work? Do the premiums make sense? Are they insurable? And then we go back with all of that data and we experiment separately while still chasing a common goal. This becomes harder when you have traditional insurance where things are a bit rigid because there's always exclusions. Regulatory compliance is quite hard and you have very little room to move. Whereas with an agile style, with agility, you are more like an amoeba. You can adapt, right? And the great thing about it is that while you're still working in silos, the research is easier because then those customers can give you feedback and you need to open that communication. And then in terms of partnerships, the great thing about it is because you don't have formal structures that are there, you will have scalable partnerships, meaning that you'll be able to acquire more people or acquire or cover more people and reach more people without you yourself having to increase headcount. And this is very important in microinsurance. And the reason for that is the rate at which you will grow and break even or even see margins is much lower. You're going to have very high volumes, but low margins. That is a little slow. Now, as you grow, what I would recommend is instead of saying we are always going to introduce another person, let's just try and use technology. When we go there and you see these people and they believe in what we have, how about we go on mobile platforms? We go on WhatsApp. If it's different classes of microinsurance that we are introducing with different insurer partners, how about we use API integration instead of them going on to WhatsApp and they have to chat to this insurer and that insurer and that insurer, have it rather centralized. And then that communication will be redirected only when they choose which insurer to speak to. Now, the outcomes, if we implement these well, is the costs will be lower, access will be instant, the reach will be wider. And then what we can do, I think for those of us that come from what's this, rural areas, we know something, that we still respect the traditional leaders. What we can do here is approach them and use them as part of a distribution channel. And obviously, it will also depend on the area. We can also have informal agents. There may be people that are closer to that, closer to those rural areas, who are not necessarily employed, or we don't necessarily have to employ, but they can be consultants, your contact consultants, where we are they're only paid if and when they are needed. We can also use employer groups. I think about farms, and think about small factories. Think about all of these other informal employments, or these small companies that have people working for them who may find that insurance is a little unaffordable. If we target those people, I believe the reach will be wider, and instead of going to their homes, their employment area will be better. Retailers, they are a given. Lately, these kids are using fancy things like QR codes, whereas I'm used to typing www. If we have those QR codes, then you are in a better position not to have an office. Go there, easily scan, then communication starts. But since you know that I mentioned that illiteracy is there, we may have to have a few people who drive using those retailers. Now, the agile role in this will do two things for us. There will be rapid onboarding. There will be continuous optimization, because we will always have data on what works and what doesn't. And if I'm illiterate financially, and I tell you why I'm not buying your story, and you fix the problem, and you come back and say, Mr. Mohoshi, remember we once spoke, and here's the solution, and you do it as quickly as possible, then I tend to trust you a little more. Now, in terms of decision making, because I think there would be a worry as to, will people make relevant decisions? Will it be the right decisions? I say yes, they will be the right decisions. And the reason being is, one, will get real-time customer insights. For example, I'm there on the floor speaking to the customer, I present this problem to you. So we know what the trends are, right? When it comes to pricing, we'll base it on behavior, and behavior not necessarily based on emotional behavior, but based on buying behavior. We will see what works and what doesn't, what is needed, what are we continuing with, what are we chucking, and we can cross-reference this across all provinces. And then that way, whatever product or solutions that we are taking there as an industry will definitely work. Now, the outcome should be one. In terms of onboarding, it should be seamless. It should be easy. You're dealing with someone who may not be able to recode what the discussion was. So keep it simple. And when it is simple and it does work, the retention rates will be higher. We don't want to start a good initiative to change the lives of people who are impoverished, and we are in a position where we are pouring into a bucket, but that bucket has no base. It keeps on leaking. That's one thing that we should avoid. And then in terms of, I like what Tandiwe mentioned regarding claims being seamless. Usually, this is where they say, this is where the tire meets the tap. On top of onboarding being simple, on top of the engagements being ongoing, when this person calls and says, or contacts us and says, I have a funeral, when this person says, what you mentioned will happen to my house has happened, we have to be quick. As rural as they may be, we have to be quick, or the communication has to be smooth. The turnaround has to be great. And the reason being is, in the test phase, or just slightly after the test phase. Our distributors will not be the ones that I have stated who are formal, but it is going to be word of mouth. And in such communities, word of mouth matters more than anything. You could have the best advert, you could have the best gimmick, but if there is mistrust, then everything will be out of the window. Now, our success factors, how will we know that we are succeeding? Strong partnerships. When you see how community leaders respond, when we get positive feedbacks from retailers, that's how we should measure that. Regulatory alignment, it's very important. I believe a lot of people, especially those who are financially illiterate, or sometimes even people that are not overly exposed to the insurance industry, have had a bad taste of losing money. So we need to make sure that we are very aligned, and it will be very easy. And the main aim goes back to what I mentioned. This needs to lean towards the client and to reduce costs. In as much as a lot of people still stay in rural areas, there is some access to technology. We should not take that for granted and conclude that they don't have that. So we have to check what the uptake is that is driven by technology, and we have to drive that. We will know that, okay, we are in the right direction, because then it means that the partnerships that we have are scalable. And the agile leadership style of culture that has to continue, the quick decisions, the thinking outside of the box, but while still remaining compliant, that will be very important. Now, all of these things tied together do one thing. It's seamless customer journey from onboarding right down to the life of the policy, right down to claims. The one thing that people do not want, even those of us that stay in urban areas, even those of us that are actually professionals, the last thing that we want is to have a complicated process when I have to onboard, a complicated process when I have to claim, and a broker perhaps who writes me up and disappears, and I only hear from them when I want to cancel. So the ongoing engagements are going to be needed. And the nice thing about it is, now that we have technology, it's easier to do that while you are in Cape Town with someone who's in occurrence. See, claims turnarounds, because of the minimal underwriting and the simple policy structures, will be easy. And what this is going to do, except for the direct customers that are there, the actual consumers, the person who holds the policy, it will create confidence even with their children, meaning that the next generation that comes up will come up knowing that there is faith in the financial services sector. Now, this is the overview and goals. What I'm trying to achieve, or to drive, a message to drive here, is based on experiences that I've had by engaging with some of the people in rural areas, some that are family, some that are friends, sometimes hearing a third party story, is that if we implement microinsurance, it has to lean towards the customers. We have to be very cognizant that we're going to get very high volumes, but the margins will be lower. So this venture would be something that gives back to the community more than driving the bottom line, right? However, it does not end there. Remember what I mentioned about the child who will watch how their parent interacts with the insurance industry and makes a decision in the future. This will be the foundation for funneling insurance education and positive insurance experience, such that we don't end up with this high number of uninsured vehicles, high number of uninsured persons, and high number of uninsured homes. And once we have that, and it's not something that will happen in the next 3 or 5 years, you will only start seeing the shoots likely in about 15 years. We are going to reduce state dependency. And what do I mean by that? If microinsurance does succeed, what stops us from taking the very same template, approaching low-income earners, providing them with basic life covers, entry-level pension funds, meaning that we remove or reduce the number of people that will depend on the government when they retire. And when they have basic life covers that can be turned into living annuities at their death, we now remove the strain of government having to intervene and support children that are bereaved. This will then create what I mentioned again, confidence in the financial industry, increase use of the products, and everything else that follows will almost be like it will have a runaway effect. Because then we can easily say to government, this is how much we have cut the costs for you. Please take down the levies. I know the conversation won't be that easy, but this is when we can engage in communication regarding discussions regarding lower taxes, perhaps a lower VAT rate, perhaps lower levies, and the main benefit will be who? The very people that we see today that are impoverished. If we don't do this to change the way of life or what our economy is projecting by just taking things that seem foreign and combining them and changing the image of the insurance industry and the entire financial services sector, we may lose out on giving the next generation a better life. Because then what will happen is we will continue having high volumes of people dependent on the state, high volumes of crime, and the middle class feeling overly burdened by the tax that we pay. I really want to go to Dubai, and at this rate, I'm wondering if I can. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, it has been a pleasure briefly sharing this with you. I know that this was very high level. I would like to engage with you further. I will leave my contact details in the Q&A section, and perhaps we can drive this and change the trajectory of this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Keba. Lots of interesting debates and comments in the chat, and some concerns raised about how phase will impact some of the community leaders, for instance. Lots of positive comments about how this is going to change. And personally, the one thing I disagree with you strongly on is your comment when you said, if microinsurance succeeds. Because I think, based on your presentation, it's not an if. It is when and how, and the role we all have to play in this exciting opportunity. So thanks for sharing that, Keba, and look forward to seeing how you and your company and colleagues are going to be driving this forward with the assistance and support of many others that is at InsureTalk today. And thank you so much for that. Next up, we have Lizelle from the FIA. And before I introduce Lizelle, not that she needs an introduction, I want to talk a little bit about an opportunity linked to the FIA and the IISA, sponsored by SASRIA. And it actually ties in a little bit about what Keba was just speaking about. So SASRIA is sponsoring, and as we know, SASRIA does a lot within our industry. SASRIA is sponsoring a program with the IISA and the FIA for 24 young black South Africans. And the program is an NQF 5 level qualification and will enable these young individuals to simplistically become brokers. There is still space for 5 individuals. So if you're a broker, own a brokerage, work at a broker, and you want some phenomenal talent, this costs you nothing because it's all sponsored by SASRIA. The detail, the admin, everything is taken care of by ISA, and FIA, please be in touch directly with Lizelle, who is the head of the FIA. And you can contact her at lizelle@fia.org.za. lizelle@fia.org.za. And it just shows you the passion that Lizelle and the FIA have for developing young talent and ensuring the sustainability of our very important intermediary market. So please be in touch with Lizelle, and thank you Sazria, FIA and ISA for the role you play in that. So as I said, Lizelle needs no introduction, and I can read her CV. She's been in the industry for a very long time. She looks young, but she's been around forever. She's worked in all kinds of companies before taking on the mantle at the FIA. But what I do want to highlight, apart from what I've just said, her passion for developing talent and sustainability, and the thing that impresses me the most about Lizelle is her real focus on people and her integrity. And I think that's partly why she's so passionate about brokers, because to be a really good intermediary, you've got to have that passion for people. You've got to really want to understand their needs and service and help them. And Lizelle is driving that culture with her amazing team at the FIA, and so we're very grateful for the role that they play. We're going to get a short update from Lizelle now about the FIA. I hope she's going to be sharing a little bit about their very successful event that they hosted in Cape Town, where their equivalent in various other countries came over to South Africa. Lizelle is far too modest in my opinion, but there were rave reviews for Lizelle and her team about the hosting. But let's hear from Lizelle and the FIA.
Hi, and for those who don't know me, my name is Lizelle van der Merwe, CEO of the Financial Intermediaries Association of Southern Africa. Before anything else, a sincere thank you to the CN&CO team, not only for once again inviting the FIA to be a part of InsureTalk, but for the exceptional work Llewellyn and his team did in coordinating the WFII Annual World Council meeting in Cape Town. It was a world-class event, and their expertise combined with a genuine passion for bringing events to life made all the difference. At the WFII meeting, we welcomed intermediary association leaders from across the globe for what turned out to be a fascinating, probing, and deeply relevant exchange of global perspectives on issues shaping our profession and industry at large. We were privileged to have Ms. Fazana Badat, Deputy Commissioner of the FSCA, engage in a wide-ranging conversation on local market conduct regulation, using South Africa as a live case study for the world. Jonathan Dixon, General Secretary of the International Association of Insurance Supervisors, brought the global regulatory lens, and Timothy Bishop from the OECD added a macroeconomic dimension to our discussions. We were absolutely delighted to have one of the FIA's partners, Hilton Kalner, CEO of Discovery, share extraordinary insights into how Discovery has built services that don't just insure people. They actively drive better behavior, better wellness, and better outcomes in society. A powerful reminder of what people-centered innovation can achieve and what our sector at its best is capable of under the leadership of South Africa's business leaders. The primary conversations centered on three themes that matter deeply. First was the transformative and disruptive impact of AI on regulators and intermediaries alike. Second was closing protection gaps, both developing and developed markets, where structural realities are very different, but the urgency is the same. And the third, the rising pressure for organizational governance and operational resilience in an increasing complex world, which we refer to as the omni-risk returns in South Africa. What strikes us every time is this: South Africa was not playing catch up in the room. Our sector was seen as progressive, resilient, and genuinely instructive to our international peers. And intermediaries, your role is not diminishing, it's becoming more essential. Closer to home, our advocacy agenda remains full and urgent. COFI, The Conduct of Financial Institutions Bill continues to be a priority conversation, and we are engaging on the FSCA working groups to ensure that the intermediary voice sharpens its implementation. On employment equity, we continue to push hard for subsector specific targets because an advisory business simply cannot be measured against the same yardstick as a bank or an insurer, and we will not stop making that case. And for members navigating the proposed BBBEE code amendments, we are hosting a dedicated webinar with a specialist from Business Unity South Africa to help you understand what those changes mean and how to prepare. Look out for that invitation in your mailbox. Which brings me to something that grounds everything we do at the FIA. Our earliest roots go back to 1949. Over 75 years of intermediary representation in this country. 4 predecessor bodies, our enduring mission, the IBA, SAIBA, SAFCIA, the IBC, and LUASA. Each chapter built something this next generation could stand on. We carry that legacy into 2026 with enormous pride, and our focus this year is clear: honoring the foundation that was built for us while building the future that our clients and our advisors will depend on. Thank you for watching, and thank you always for being part of this remarkable industry.
Thanks so much, Lizelle. I love that close and talking about history and how proud you are to build on that and the responsibility we all have going forward. And that is another amazing part of this industry, balancing the past, learning from it, taking all of that, adding some innovation, and moving forward. So thank you so much for that. Lizelle, as some of you may know, is like Tandiwe, a bit of a fiend on the netball court, and she's also a keen hiker. And I think what the FI needs to do is have a little bit of a insurance Camino, Lizelle, and get a couple of us to go for some good hikes and walks around our beautiful country. I'm sure we'll get some great opportunities and business links through that. But thank you to our association partner, FIA. Great to hear today from their CEO, Lizelle. A reminder that today's session has been made possible and sponsored by the Global Choices team, celebrating 25 years in the industry and helping through empathy, technology, innovation, and simply doing what they promised to do. So thank you very much to Global Choices. Next up, we have our media partner, FA News, and again, Rianette needs no introduction. She's been in this industry for decades, built this business that her father started a long time ago, and has also taken some great innovations with the Insurance Apprentice. We're going to hear a little bit from all the exciting stuff at FA News and Insurance Apprentice from Rianette.
Hello everyone and welcome to InsureTalk. It's great to be back. My name is Rianette Whitehead and I'm the editor of FA News. So before we start, happy 6th birthday InsureTalk. You are doing an incredible job. And for us here at FA News and obviously TIA, it is a massive honor to be part of this journey. Thank you. Thank you for allowing us into your room. And by the way, a very quick shout out to the brokers from Polokwane I met at the Bright Roadshow. You guys rock. It was such a pleasure to meet with you and engage with you. And it all started with a conversation on, I listened to you on InsureTalk. Talking about the Bright Roadshow, I had the massive privilege of interviewing Wade van Niekerk on the Broker Roadshow, and it was really, really insightful and incredible to listen to his journey and how we could find so many comparisons between what we as an industry do and what his journey all entailed. Over to business. There's a lot of things happening right now in our industry, in our businesses, and definitely here at FA News and the Insurance Apprentice. So today, I want to focus on what is really dominating conversations in the non-life space, touch on something exciting that is brewing for brokers, share thoughts I think could be powerful for our industry, and then briefly bring in TIA, the Insurance Apprentice. So if you strip everything back, the newsletters, the interviews, the conversations we're having, a few things are coming through very, very clearly. Firstly, clients are under pressure. Affordability is real and it's forcing very tough decisions. We're seeing more cover reductions, higher excesses, and in some cases, people walking away from insurance altogether. And that's the tension, because at the exact same time, risk is increasing. Risk is also becoming more complex and more visible. It's no longer abstract. It's potholes damaging vehicles, infrastructure failures, weather events, and business interruption risks that small businesses simply cannot absorb. So the conversation is shifting from what does my policy cover to what can actually go wrong in my world and how do I survive it? And that's a very different conversation. Then there's role of the broker. And this is where things get a little bit interesting. It's under the spotlight again, not because it's fading, but because it's becoming more important and needs to be better articulated. And I'll say this, something is brewing. There are some very passionate change makers in the industry who are starting to rally around one very simple idea. Why use a broker? Not just a statement, but as a proper industry-wide drive to reposition, re-explain, and re-energize the value of advice. There are a lot of moving parts. It's still taking shape, but it's quite exciting. So if that's something you feel strongly about, reach out, because this is one of those things that could genuinely shift perceptions in the market. And then, almost in the same breath, I've been thinking about something. How do we recognize the legends in the industry, the people, brokers and insurers who have built, shaped and carried this industry? And how do we not just celebrate them, but use that experience in a meaningful way? So here's a very early, slightly sketchy idea. What if we created something not for TV, just for the industry? At the same time we record our next season for TIA, we record an industry-focused episode where we pair legends with TIA alumni, giving them a proper industry challenge, and then have a panel made up of the legends and the alumni who didn't make it into those teams. So it becomes experience meets fresh thinking. Past meets future. It's rough, but I think there's something powerful there. So if you feel like you could add value to shaping whatever that is, I'd love to chat, and I'll share more detail in the next InsureTalk. Now, speaking of fresh thinking, let me briefly touch on the Insurance Apprentice Season 12. Season 12 and Season 2 on television starts on 2 May on E-Extra. It's 20 to 7 on a Saturday night. The repeat is 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning. And on Monday, we'll upload it onto the TIA YouTube, Facebook, and website. This season is amazing, and we've really tried to bring the industry conversations to life. At the high level, it's about risk, relevance, behavior, and real-world problem solving. With Aon, episode 1, it was about rescuing a typical Mzansi business. what can go wrong, and how do we prevent it. With Sazria, the episode was called The Paradox. We asked contestants to unpack the difference between a strike and a riot, but the real message was about consequences and how quickly things can escalate. This is like an illegal sneak preview just for you. And this is the end of episode 2. I'm not giving anything away in terms of contestants, but I thought it was quite powerful, and hopefully this is something that might make you consider watching this year's episodes if you haven't done that so ever before.
Today's challenge reminded us of how important it is to understand our rights and how knowledge can protect lives and our communities.
As young people, we didn't grow up being taught the difference between a crime and a right. But if we understand how to protest safely, with a vision, with a purpose, we can shape a better country. Today, education showed me that it protects lives, protects communities, and protects our future.
Indeed.
Okay, within CETA, it was about careers, but really about how we connect with the next generation. And there's a nice twist with Bright. The challenge was mindset. How do we get people to see short-term insurance as a must-have in the same way they see funeral policies? With Old Mutual Insure, we looked at real broker challenges, communication, tech adoption, service, and asked for actual tech-driven solutions. And with the FCA, we created a fictitious company, which is probably not fictitious, selling things that clearly could not deliver on, and that ended in a courtroom debate. Brilliant. All of it grounded in one thing: making insurance real for people out there. We'll talk more about the finale next time, which is sponsored by Santam. So when you step back and look at everything happening right now, it all points to the same thing. Insurance is no longer just about cover. It's about understanding risk, preventing loss, communicating value, and staying relevant in a changing world. And maybe that is the opportunity, not just to protect what people have, but to help them navigate what's coming. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you, InsureTalk, for the opportunity. And once again, happy 6th birthday. Enjoy the rest of your session.
"20 young professionals, real-world insurance challenges, and one chance to prove that they have what it takes to become the ultimate ambassador in the short-term insurance industry." The challenge begins now.
Do not disappoint. Bring your A game today.
Oh, they don't know what's coming.
We were screwed.
Every decision counts, and every move is watched. This is the Insurance Apprentice.
Hurry up, let's get this on.
Nia. Okay, fine. Everyone can ignore my points. Just check it over. Not now.
The guns are off.
In every episode, our contestants face tough, real-world insurance challenges, from saving businesses to managing risk and solving complex problems, all under pressure and on tight deadlines.
I'm a bit concerned.
They're terrible.
I'm going to lose it.
Really, I feel sorry for you. This is pathetic, guys.
Only the smartest, the boldest, and the most strategic will survive.
What a twist!
Who will rise to the top
I'm competitive.
Now the time.
and who will fall?
I need to finish what I started.
The journey starts now.
Someone has to go home today.
This is the Insurance Apprentice.
That is super exciting, Rionette. And I know that there are a couple of nerds like me who cannot wait for the season to start and who don't miss an episode. because it really just engenders what insurance is about. It is so interesting. Lots of strategy involved, lots of tasks that these guys have to go through. I've got some inside information which I'd love to share with you, but Renette would kill me, so I won't. So best you tune in alongside millions of people, literally, that watch The Insurance Apprentice and that see what a phenomenal industry we work in. So don't miss it. Make sure to stay in the loop. If you don't catch it on TV, Renette will share all of those details through their network as well. So next up, we are going to talk a little bit about InsureTalk and our history, 6 years since we started this. And as all of you know, it was an idea that Llewellyn and I had in the height of COVID, where we didn't know what was going to happen, and to get insurance people, this amazing community that we love, to share information and stay together. Every episode has been live. Our first MC was Simon Coleman, who, as always, generously jumped in to assist. We had Christelle for many episodes handling the MC job really, really superbly. And we've had some guest MCs, and we're going to be starting that with the next one as well, getting some new blood in and showcasing the diversity of our industry. But throughout, whether there have been technical faults that we pretended didn't happen, behind the scenes, Llewellyn, who is at times a complete drama queen / control freak, all because he wants it to be perfect, and he is so passionate about this brand. He sometimes drives me insane because we can never miss an episode. He hasn't missed one ever. He is just, I think this really is his favorite child, if there is such a thing. But there have been some wonderful moments. There have been some sadnesses. Some people that have been speakers and that have played a big role here are no longer with us. And I invite you, we're going to play a short video that reflects a bit on the 6 years and what Llewellyn and the team have achieved. Enjoy.
When the door stayed shut, you found another way. One screen, one shared room, one voice to carry the day. In the middle of uncertainty, you brought the whole world close. Insurance in the same place when it mattered most. From a small brave start to something built to last, every name in the chat felt the future in the past, and line by line we watched it rise. 6 years strong, InsureTalk, InsureTalk. 6 years strong, InsureTalk. We came this far. From lockdown days to 1,000 screens of light. 6 years strong, InsureTalk. We're growing every year.
Hi, it's Colin Ford here from CN&CO. Just wishing InsureTalk a very happy 6th birthday. It's been an absolute pleasure and privilege to be part of the team that puts this monthly webinar together. And I'd like to say thanks to everyone who's supported us over the years, and a big well done to the team that puts it all together. Looking forward to more years of InsureTalk.
Dear Llewellyn, yes, congratulations on 6 years of innovation. You really took COVID and the challenges of COVID and created something very positive for the industry. Collaboration, networking, learning, knowledge sharing, all of those things come together in this InsureTalk that you've put together. And yeah, thank you very much for the way that you're doing it, that you're incorporating different people and sharing the initiative with the industry as a whole, and assisting people to get their exposure there and to just benefit the industry as a whole. I think it was incredible how you've built this over this period of time. Thank you very much also for your support of Cover. And yeah, Cover the whole cover team wishes you and your team a vibrant and very successful 2026. And yeah, here's to knowledge sharing in the industry.
Today, we celebrate more than just a birthday. From knowledge sharing to professional growth, every session has empowered us to do better, be better, and stay ahead. Happy 6th birthday, InsureTalk.
Wow, 6 years old. That's 6 years of big ideas, bold conversations, and probably way too much coffee once a month. Who knew talking about insurance can be so interesting? Well done, InsureTalk team. Thank you for bringing all these insights and knowledge to our screens and sharing it with the industry. From all of us at Global Choices, congratulations, and we're looking forward to many more years with you. Thank you.
Isn't it amazing to think that InsureTalk started during lockdown? It was a time when we were all trying to figure things out and stay connected. What Karel, Llewellyn and the rest of the InsureTalk team built back then really filled a gap. And today it's grown into something incredibly meaningful for our industry. Over the last 6 years, InsureTalk has become a space where conversations happen, where we can share ideas, even challenge conventional thinking, and help move insurance forward. What started as a great idea has grown into a platform with real influence and relevance. Elite is proud to have supported InsureTalk right from the very beginning, and it's been a privilege to watch your journey and see the impact you've made along the way. Congratulations to the InsureTalk team on 6 years, and here's to many more.
Happy birthday, InsureTalk. An amazing achievement 6 years later and still adding immense value to the insurance industry, empowering, upskilling, uplifting. It really is amazing to see over 3,000 insurance professionals join every month. From all of us at Gage Car Hire, I just wanted to say congratulations and thank you. Here's to many more to come and all the best. Cheers.
A very, very happy 6th birthday to InsureTalk, and it's truly a time to celebrate how far you've come. From connecting the industry during challenging times to becoming a go-to platform for insight, learning and innovation. Thank you for the role that you are playing in this industry and keeping us informed, connected and inspired. And here's to many, many more years of impact and innovation.
So most of you know me, and my name is Karel Nalter, for those of you who don't. And I want to firstly say a big thank you and congratulations for being brave and joining us today. In these uncertain times, bravery is definitely needed, and we're co-creating something. So a big thank you to all of you who willingly jumped into this experiment with us. A special thanks to Leah, who's joining us for performance. First time she's doing something like this. I think first time many artists would be experimenting. That's a little bit later. So we're going to look forward to that. Appreciate any feedback that you guys might have. As I said, this is an experiment. We've done some texting. The CN&CO events team have been great. And so hopefully all will go well, but who knows? So yeah, your thoughts would be really appreciated. To help us make sure that things go well, I'm not going to be the MC. I've conned Simon Coleman into doing that job because he's brilliant at it. He's also well known for being the chief judge on Insurance Apprentice, and as you know from there, he takes no cut. So if anything goes wrong today, it's Simon's fault. You can blame him. And without any further ado, I'd like to hand over to the legend, Simon Coleman, who is going to be our MC today. Thanks very much, Simon.
Yeah, thank you, Carl, and good morning to everybody. Thank you for tuning in. I'm certainly looking forward to this. I haven't really done any MCing on a VC platform before. It's kind of difficult without having an audience that you can make contact with, and I think all of the speakers will appreciate that as well today. So, as I would normally do if I'm emceeing an event, of course, I would take you through some housekeeping. So I thought this was a good opportunity to just explain that the bathrooms are somewhere near to you in your house. Hopefully you know where those are. Coffee is really available whenever you'd like it. And there is a smoking area, as long as you can find something to smoke in South Africa. And you can feel free to do that whenever you like. On the bathroom issue, if you are watching this in the bathroom with some cigarettes and some coffee, well, then you don't really have to move around at all. And I think that'll be fantastic. So,
These days. For all those times that you rain on our parade, and all the clubs you're getting using my name. You think you broke my heart, oh boy, for goodness sake. You think I'm crying on my own, well I ain't. And I didn't want to write a song, cause I didn't want anyone thinking I still care, I don't. But you still hit my phone up. Well, maybe I'll be moving on, and I think it should be something I don't want to hold back. Maybe you should know that my mama don't like you, and she likes everyone. And I never like to admit that I was wrong. I've been so caught up in my job, didn't see what's going on, but now I know I better sleep in on my own. You look the way you look that much, oh baby, you should go and love yourself. And if you think that I'm still holding on to something, you should go and love yourself. And if you like the way you look that much, oh baby, you should go and love yourself. And if you think that I'm still holding on to something, you should go and love yourself.
Great to take a trip down memory lane with all our busy lives and so much happening. I don't think we take enough time to acknowledge how far we come in our companies and our personal lives, in our industry. Embarrassingly looking at myself there and realizing since then how many things have changed in my personal professional life. Delighted that I still have all of those books, which I've recently unpacked in my new home. But Wimpy from Global Choices, our event partner for today, asks in that little clip that I saw now for the first time, who would have thought that insurance was such an interesting industry and so many conversations would be so interesting? And I think my answer is Wimpy, you, and so many other legends in this industry who have over not just 6 years but decades inspired so many of us personally and through your organizations. And we have so many legends in this industry and so many legends in the making. And so it was wonderful also to see people like Tony a former media partner, no longer directly involved with InsureTalk, but still very involved. And I think that's another thing that I love about this industry. We can move from one company to another, we can compete and compete strongly, but we do so in the spirit of collaboration and making sure that insurance industry grows. That we do things not to the detriment of each other in our companies, but for the positive contribution to our clients. And so that was really wonderful going through that. The song was done by Llewellyn. As I said, that was the first time I saw it, and that is fantastic. For those of you who don't know, Llewellyn has worked in the entertainment industry since the age of 6, where he traveled the country, amongst others, with Patricia Lewis. As you heard from my swearing there, I say things that are inappropriate and direct at times and perhaps even illegal. But Llewellyn bunked school because he was so keen to work on the road. And as a way to bribe his teachers, he took back signed autographs or photographs of Patricia Lewis after he eventually got back to school. And so he's been hustling and being involved in events for many, many years. And I want to ask Llewellyn, we weren't going to do this insert together, but Llewellyn was, I like to change things up a little bit. And I want to ask Llewellyn, we had Leah as our first entertainer. Now, she is famous. She readily agreed to do it for us at no cost. And we then helped many artists through InsureTalk and COVID period. And we did, in fact, pay many of them. And it was the only source of income they had. And we were very proud of that. But now we're in a fancy studio, mic'd up. I don't say the word cuck so much anymore. But I mean, how did Leah do that? Because now there's a lot of technology. But how did that actually happen?
So yeah, we just laughed about it actually, and that shows you that with InsureTalk we just started out of nothing. So with Leah, we picked up the phone. I think Rikus asked her as a favor. He knows her. And we convinced her, she was a bit nervous, but we convinced her to literally plug in her iPad next to her laptop, play that on loudspeaker, and sing on her laptop speakers. So no plugins, no fancy equipment, just her voice and the backtrack singing. We were all nervous because that was also the very first Zoom session we did ever. So it was her first as well as ours.
So if you haven't supported Leah, buy one of her songs or records because she was brave. And again, the obvious link with insurance is this is an industry that's known for its bravery and it's known for its innovation. And before we go to our last speaker for the day, I wanted to ask Llewellyn, who is the driving force behind InsureTalk, if he actually does anything else apart from writing songs for InsureTalk. And specifically, I've heard talk of an event that you are wanting to launch at the next InsureTalk. But some people are already talking about it because some organizations like Global Choices and I2 are already sponsoring it. So not letting the cat completely out the bag, but tell us what's happening August time in the Cape region.
So yes, very exciting. As the CN&CO are launching the insurance conference in Cape Town. Blake and myself and Hugh will be working very closely together on that exciting project and bringing something unique to Cape Town. I feel Joburg and the other regions sometimes gets the big events, and I think it's time that we bring something very exciting, completely different to Cape Town for the insurance guys here.
Great, and yeah, we're delighted that Global Choices is involved there, a part of their 25th celebration, going to be joining us. I too have got some exciting ideas, and more information will be forthcoming shortly. This is going to be the first year testing the insurance conference in the Cape, and we look forward to joining. But Llewellyn, thank you very much for all that you and the team do. As I said earlier, a little bit tongue-in-cheek, Llewellyn is a drama queen, but what I mean seriously is he is a control freak. And last InsureTalk, Llewellyn was off-site because he was handling something for one of the sponsors, but very much involved. And then, of course, we had a couple of technical difficulties, which allowed Llewellyn to prove that without him it can't work. So he is back on site. We're now going to the final speaker, and this is somebody that was introduced to us by Global Choices. The Global Choices team, Wimpy, really have the ability to find interesting people doing interesting work. And that impacts our industry directly. And it gives me great joy to introduce Cynthia, Cynthia is described by some as a motivational speaker, but she's so much more than that. Currently, with a couple of other amazing individuals, is working in an organization that they founded, the Courage Hub, and Cynthia will be talking about that, I'm sure. But she's, as I say, not just a motivational speaker, not just a yoga instructor, not only a board member of various organizations, including formerly from Amnesty International, Joburg Children's Home. She volunteers at radio stations, does a lot of community work. She's the author of Hijackers on Board, and that is about her experience at South African Airways, at SAA. She's got an MBA, and she's worked in banking, treasury, risk management, so, you know, and the last 10 years at SAA, 8 was as head of financial risk, and the last 2 of those was in the role of group treasurer. She's been awarded things such as the Citation on Integrity Award by the Air Pilots Association. The Congress of Business Economics awarded her the Ahmed Kathrada Excellence in Leadership Award. She's done phenomenal work in the whistleblowing space. She worked at Whistleblower House from 2022, supporting whistleblowers, and you would have seen a lot of media coverage about how that is so vital. And so, Cynthia, we're really looking forward to you talking. And to close off this session, the 61st edition, our 6th birthday, I love the title that Cynthia's chosen. It's simply The Importance of Moral Courage. Over to you, Cynthia.
I'm just about to share my presentation. There we are. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. And I was listening for the last half hour, and I find your work absolutely interesting. I'd like to start with my talk, my heading being obviously moral courage. My name is Cynthia Stimple, as introduced. I didn't start out to be a whistleblower. It was never the thought. The thought was that I'm just doing my job. And through doing my job, I ended up being a whistleblower. If you've listened to the recent news of the killing of Martha Mani Rantsope from Mfuleni municipality, reading her story tells me she was just doing her job. So I'd like to start off with a quotation from Judge Zondo, who ran the State Capture Commission, which is now called Zondo Commission, and he stated that corruption is crime against the South African people and robs our people of resources that should have been used to improve the lives of the poorest and the most vulnerable in our society. So I'd like to ask you, have any of you read these books? I know you cannot answer me, but there you have it. The Shadow State, recently published by Jeff Wicks, who is a renowned author and journalist of News 24. And then The Dark Prince by Peter du Toit, 8 Days, which was written in because of the events in 2021 when we had the riots and lost over 50 billion in our country through burning of infrastructure. Blessed by Bosasa Adrian Basson. Hijackers on Board is my book, and then Zonda at your fingertips. So just a few which keeps one up to date with where corruption is. I'd like to take you back about 6 years ago in the year 2020. What happened? Your organization was a positive thing that happened by starting InsureTalk in 2020, whereas it came out of a disaster where we had COVID and many of us lost special lives, precious lives in this time. It also prevented us from living a normal life, and it prevented us from interacting with family. But through that, in the background, the PPE fraud was happening. So that's the backdrop. In 2021 was the riots, and that cost the country 50 billion. And why did that happen? Because The former president was found to be in contempt of court when he refused to attend the Zondo Commission. And the people in KZN, together with other supporters in Gauteng, decided that they're not going to allow this and created riots, which damages and affects every single person in South Africa. In 2022, we had a fire in Parliament. We still don't know why that fire happened. And it's not yet resolved because Parliament is obviously housing itself in another space. We had the Inyobeni Tavern disaster in East London. We had KZN floods. And obviously Phala. Then 2023, South Africa was grey listed, which I'm sure affected your industry, the insurance. We had in Johannesburg, the Usindiso building fire, which displaced over 300 people and 77 people resulted in dying. Then we had the cholera breakout near Hammanskraal. 2024, Stilfontein mines, whereby people were also killed in those shafts. It's an area that could have been handled differently. What I'm pointing out is how the corruption is interacting behind the scenes. We obviously voted and we became a government of national unity. And then there was the Esidimeni judgment, which was the first part of that coming out. Last year, we had Madlanga Commission starting because of Makwenazi speaking out. And this year was the Nkabinda Commission. Where does this leave us and why am I speaking about history when I'm supposed to be talking about my story and where my story fits in this? My story really starts because of corruption at SAA, where I worked for the past 10 years from 2006 to 2016. How did this happen? It transpired more because in my work's position in Treasury was that I was in charge of borrowing funds for South African Airways. And we did this funding through the banks. I'm sure you in your organization would only borrow funds through credit-rated banks. You wouldn't go to some corner shop and ask for money and borrow from them, obviously, because that's too risky. And so we had a policy, a credit risk policy around this. We had a funding policy of how we borrowed funds. And we even had a list of the banks. We didn't just go to any bank to borrow billions. We had certain banks that were credit rated that we had signed agreements with and would borrow through them. This happened because SAA was in debt and we had already had 11 billion borrowed to date. We had 14, almost 15 billion of government guarantees, meaning we had a gap of additional 3 billion to borrow. This was the beginning of 2016. And when I took over as group treasurer, I looked at our debt and I said, we need to consolidate our debt, meaning we had debt over we were repaying every year. We were paying interest paid of over 1.4 billion per year. And it was just like running on a treadmill, you know, the hamster wheel, just borrowing and paying, borrowing and paying. And we then thought the best idea would be to consolidate the debt, minimize the interest paid, and have some cost saving for SAA. I put this through formal review, through the various internal committees, through to National Treasury, through to our board, and everything was approved. However, when it was time for us to borrow these funds and consolidate the debt, our board, the SA board at that time, made up of Ms. Dudu Mayeni, Ms. Yake Kwinani, and Dr. John Tambi, interfered. They wanted to give their own clients. They didn't want us to go to the banks, and they wanted to add suppliers. So I refused. Secondly, is they then bypassed my division and they put their own proposal forward at the board meeting and wanted me to ratify a board resolution that said we won't go with the recommendations that Treasury made. We made recommendations to the banks. We would rather go with getting funds from a supplier like Free State Development Corporation. I was called into a meeting to ratify this board resolution. When I read it, they couldn't even give me adequate information. The board resolution said we will not approve the recommendation made by Treasury Department of SA, ours, but instead we will give authority to the CEO and the CFO to go ahead and sign and authorize Free State Development Corp to source funding for SA. When I Googled what FDC's mandate was, I found out that they were only responsible for organizations within the Free State, that they could only help development organizations like farms or smaller organizations. There was no way that they should be giving funding to a state-owned entity. And so I obviously said, I'm not signing this. And I again gave my recommendations. Please, we need to go on a complete new request for proposal out into the public space. However, our board went through our procurement department. They hired a transaction advisor who won the award at a cost of 2.68 million to only review our loan book, review our leasing book, which is the aircraft, review our capital and debt, and to look at inexpensive debt that we may have and look at our balance sheet. So it was pure review work that they hired this transaction advisor called BNP Capital for SAA. This was done outside my jurisdiction. When I got to hear about it, I thought, okay, it's just a review. And I was waiting for them to come and speak to me and ask me for the information. They didn't. In the meantime, I tried to stop the transaction from happening with the FTC. I went to see the CFO and told her, we are not going to do this. And so I asked them to please put this out for further request for proposal. This then happened, our CFO then told us, well, we already have permission from the board to use BNP Capital to source funding for SAA. I called a risk committee meeting for us to discuss this, and everyone in the risk committee said we all had reasons we should go out and do a full request for proposal, 1. 2, we cannot pay a client and change the scope of an existing tender, which the tender was and the mandate was to only review, and now we're changing the scope to now go and source funding. The sourcing of funds was done by myself and my team at the cost of our salaries, which was already in our budget. No additional budget, no additional cost. So when I saw this again, they'd asked me to sign the bid adjudication committee, which I refused to do. Because I couldn't do it, I refused to do it. They then said, well, she's going to, our CFO said she was going to take it directly to our board and get approval. It was taken to our board. At the time when I refused to sign this bid adjudication bid, I was away on a week's leave, which has planned for in 6 months ago already. And I said to my CEO, please, I'll be back. Please don't do anything. I went to my staff. I said, don't do anything while I'm gone, because we cannot sign this transaction. They're asking us to pay 256 million for sourcing of funds to a transaction advisor, which we did for the cost of our salaries. While I was away, my deputy signed this transaction. And then he sent me a message via WhatsApp saying we shouldn't, he was forced to do it. When I came back, I asked for the minutes for this meeting at the bid adjudication committee. When I interrogated those minutes, I found that not a single person on that committee asked any questions. They just signed it on the pretext that South African Airways needed the money. Not finding out who the client is, have they been credit rated, have they got the capacity, have they done sourcing before of funds, nothing like that. I realized then that we in dire straits. I was trying to save 300 million for SAA by consolidating debt, and now they're going to pay 256 to a small organization. So I refuse to have this done. I then reported it, obviously, to our executive. And when I heard nothing from them, I reported to the chief risk officer, to the head of internal audit, heard nothing. They didn't do anything. And then I reported it to National Treasury, direct to Pravin Gordon's department. And that was all in May and June. And by the time the end of June came and I didn't hear anything, I then reported it to OUTA. So the question was, why did I do it? I stood up because I felt that I'm doing my job. I needed to stop something that was illegally happening and unlawfully happening under my watch. And I even told my family, my husband, my children, that they told me resign. And I said, if I walk away now, this is going to happen, and that I mustn't allow this to happen. And my words were, I'm not worth my salt as a group treasurer if I allow this to happen. And so I stood up for my principles and values to stop this payment. OUTA helped me totally. They managed to get me lawyers, Weber Wenzel, who managed to stop the payment. So this payment was never made. The deal was cancelled by SAA. But what transpired was that I lost my job. So was there life after whistleblowing? It was a hard struggle, but I stand with it was my faith, my values, and my principles that kept me going. Where does this leave us going to the future? Is that there's a cost of corruption for all of us. Judge Zondo said in his recommendations, when you read up the Judge Zondo findings, you will find that he wrote something, a quote specifically about me. Whistleblowers like Cynthia Stimple are the last line of defense against corruption and state capture, to hold state-owned is accountable. He said, without people like her who are willing to resist pressures, the chance of these legal activities will be exposed and reduced considerably. So what are the costs of corruption? Please hold a second. I'm so sorry. I'm in a noisy place, so I just had to go. But the costs are that it's not just that we see the figures on TV or we read in the media. We did read it through Daily Maverick. What we're seeing is that it's affecting the very roads we drive on. We can see the potholes. We can see the state that there's no water in Johannesburg. I'm not sure where all of you are around the world, South Africa, but we suffering from no water, no clean water. We're suffering from no electricity. Our hospitals, our health services are in a terrible state. And this just shows it's because the money is being driven out of the country to people's pockets. We can buy 4 sports cars and paint them all blue, and yet people are dying because there isn't oxygen in our hospitals, or we cannot buy an MRI machine, or we cannot treat cancer, or we cannot even give basic medicines to patients. So So I'd like to just give you a calculation we did on the cost of corruption when Babita Deokaran spoke out in 2021 and was killed at the time, assassinated by 12 bullets fired into her vehicle. She, at that time, identified 850 million, just in her calculations at that time. We then did the sums that if we had the 850 million, we then did the research on what would it cost to have an electrical bed that you can just move up and down without pumping it with your foot, decent beds, decent bedding. How do you maintain the cost of maintaining a hospital for a full year costs 15 million, and how much to buy MRI scans? And with the 850 million, we could have had 7,737 new electrical beds. We could have maintained 10 hospitals, and we could have bought MRI scans. My daughter, who is a medical doctor working at the Rehema Musa, they only received an MRI scan last year. And this MRI scan was funded by FNB and by Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, not the state, not our taxpayers' money, where it should go, but rather people who see the need and are doing the goodwill that is needed in our country. So that is, and the SIU has now got involved with investigating the Tembisa Hospital issue, and to date they have found over 2 billion fraud. So imagine what that can buy. So what is a whistleblower's loss, journey loss, is what the picture I'd like to paint for you today, is that you lose your personal freedom and you suffer with mental health, physical health, family health, because your children are impacted by it as well. I have many examples of that, which I won't go in right now. There's the loss of livelihood. You firstly lose your current job, and then you cannot find a job thereafter. When I left SAA, I have an MBA. I have banking experience. I've got unique banking experience because I've been in the risk area where very few females, firstly, are involved. Secondly, I was in the derivative space where also very few females are involved. But yet, when I applied, I couldn't get any position. Not even, I even applied to be a teller because that's where I started. I applied for the basic jobs and I could not get a job. You are isolated, you're ostracized, your reputation is damaged. People Google you. Mine was defiant defiant group treasurer, and where the message that went out from SAA that I committed misconduct. Now, if anybody in the financial industry hears of anyone that committed misconduct, they're going to stay away from them with a barge pole. So obviously there was no opportunity for me to find work. For many whistleblowers, they have to pay their own legal fees. I was very fortunate that Outer paid my legal fees, which came to over 400,000. And then you incur debt through those legal fees if you didn't. As again, I was fortunate. But with other whistleblowers, you can't work, so you can't pay your home, so you lose your home, you lose your car, all those assets that you built over years. And the name of whistleblower is such a stigma that nobody wants to touch you. The Whistleblower Protection Act that we currently have does not truly protect whistleblowers, and nowhere does it even reference whistleblower. And only now with the new legislation that came out the other day, which is still a white paper, they brought in a clause that the witness protection can now also protect whistleblowers. And then there are those whistleblowers who had the ultimate sacrifice in that it's the loss of the human lives, like Babita Deokaran, like Maspako, like Frans Matipa was with the Hawks, Maspako was with the Mombela Stadium, Mpo Mafelo was last year with the Ekurhuleni municipality, Philemon Ngwenya was the dairy farm, the Vrede dairy farm. And more recently was Martha Mani Rantsope, the lady from Mfuleni. So people were just doing their jobs and were then assassinated for doing their jobs. So why is it then important to speak out and have moral courage? If we all play our role as citizens, if we all play our role where we are, in our communities, in our churches, in our workplaces, no matter how small or how large that workplaces are, we all have a sphere of influence. And if we can use that sphere of influence to live ethical lives, to influence those that you recognize are not being ethical, is to encourage them to speak out or to stop doing what they're doing so that we can start preventing corruption and the moral decay that we're seeing in our country. So I'm just giving you a few examples of how much funds people have complained that the Zondo Commission cost over 1 billion. Yes, it did. But to date, over 20 billion has been recouped. So let's start quickly with the cost of money that left the country at the time was roughly, they said a tip of the iceberg which came, that 1.5 billion at the time when the Zondo Commission was being still ongoing, that they identified up to 3 trillion of funds that have been defrauded. However, the good thing where people have spoken out through the regiments and trillion whistleblowers, 1.6 billion was recouped. The PRASA whistleblowers stopped 65 million from the Foslo Shivambo deal, but they managed to stop 1 billion being paid to VBS VBS directly, which would have gone down the drain because VBS then went bankrupt within a month. SAA, I stopped the 256 million, but even after I stopped that deal and I'd already left SAA, there was another request to pay firstly 125 million, and then it was reduced to 49.9, roughly 50 million for cancellation clause. Who puts those in their contracts? And then the NASFES deal, over 700 million was recouped, and that was all through the hard work of Outer. The Gupta leaks, they managed to stop the account of the Guptas where funds were being linked to international accounts where funds were leaving South Africa. And then SARS themselves worked together with Interpol and managed to recoup funds from Bain, McKinsey's, KPMG, ABB, and they've done over 3 billion there. And then last but not least, in the total figure given by Advocate Paul Pretorius, he said they've already recouped 10 billion in the work that they've been doing after the Zondo Commission, and there's another 10 billion in the pipeline. So what I'd like you to do for a minute is just close your eyes and just imagine that if all those funds that now went to corruption, we used them where it was supposed to go, for high quality education, that all our children are going to early childhood development at a minimum cost or no cost, where there's qualified teachers there, that in our schools, we don't have this disparity of private schools and public schools. We have a high level of education throughout our school level. We all write the same exams, so our children have the ability to reason, love maths, love science, love puzzles, and want to find solutions. That by the time our children go to universities and college, they are so confident that they can achieve anything and the sky's the limit. Imagine that we have high quality hospitals, that if I'm going to be booked in tomorrow because I had a checkup and there's a possibility of cancer, that I go in there with no fear that I will be taken, that I may not come out of hospital, that those doctors, nurses, the staff are so highly educated, well trained, and the equipment is all available for all our patients. Imagine that our road infrastructure is working so well, that our trucks can with all the goods that we're supplying from our ports into our organizations, and that infrastructure is working effectively, that we have a rail system that is so effective that those train rides are working effectively for our passengers, together for our goods. And the roads work effectively as well. That our roads are safe, that not every holiday or every long weekend we have the death toll on our roads. And then have employment for all, because we are such a functional country that everybody can work in any sphere that they want to. They can be astronauts, they can be doctors, they can be inventors. And then just this high quality of life for all. Is it possible? I believe it's possible. I believe it's something we can do, because in the nature of South Africans, and we've seen that, we have a resilience within us, and we have such a strong way of helping one another. We are divided by our government, we are divided by various parties, but yet when we sit next to one another, we find solutions and we want to work together, and we do. So that's the South Africa I imagine. And then for the whistleblower environment, I feel that we need to have systems, that safe mechanisms for reporting, because I shouldn't be the only whistleblower and all those other whistleblowers. We all should be doing our jobs to the best of our ability. But it should be a norm. It shouldn't be that a selected few. Organizations should have a duty of care for all their staff. It shouldn't be just one person speaking out and then the organization stands back and say, well, it's not my responsibility. There should be a whistleblowers trust fund that can help people who speak out so that they don't lose their jobs and forever and a day struggle. Legal services should be pro bono. It should never be that you have to pay 400,000. The PRASA ones, their legal fees are over $1 million already. And then how do we integrate whistleblowers back into the workforce? Because right now, the work that I'm doing, I'm working with so many whistleblowers and no one wants to re-employ them. We need in our organizations, those anti-corruption laws needs to be enforced. We've got the best laws in the country, but they are not being enforced. And we need to have good codes of conduct, because we have codes of conduct in every organization, but nobody holds them to account, and there's no real consequences. And it's up to us who sit on those boards, it's up to us who are in those sections to start asking the hard questions. Have we held this person accountable? Because now it's easy. People resign and they're not being held accountable. The independent oversight bodies are all working with political interference. We need to stop that. And then we need to have transparency and accountability mechanisms. As we've seen, the government only now comes out with the whistleblower legislation. After 3 years ago, we already gave input. Why? For me, I'm seeing it as a elections ploy, because we've got municipal elections coming up in a few months' time. It shouldn't be that. It should be them being honorable, ethical, and saying, we need to do this, we do it to the best of ability. And we need to stop reprisals for whistleblowers and their families. So I've covered that. This is just in more detail, Whistleblower Trust Fund, and we need to fast track any information. So I'm just going to go past this. What is really important is therapeutic counseling. If my daughter wasn't a medical doctor, she was the first one. Halfway through me going to the Zondo Commission, giving evidence there, she already said, Mom, I'm going to book for you to see a counselor, which I did, and I'm ever grateful that I did. So, and this is what we're doing now to protect whistleblowers. We're giving them therapeutic counseling. We're finding ways of how can we rehabilitate them back into the field? How can we train them differently so they can have work? And how can we health, get them back to be functional human beings. The next is that I'd like to go into closing is that we all have a duty. We have a duty as leaders in our community, as parents, to uphold personal values and principles, to create an ethical society, to have a strong sense of what is right and wrong, and to follow a moral path. And when we're making any decisions, whether we're at board, whether we just sitting in a group, make sure that those decisions are ethical and moral, and that we must leave a positive legacy for our family and for our children. And in conclusion, I'd like to just leave you with a slide of that we need to be the change that we want to see in the world by Mahatma Gandhi. And I'm open to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. You would have seen through all the comments the huge interest that there was in your topic, and what an inspiration you and so many other people are. And I think yeah, a lot of useful tips and some challenge to all of us to have more moral courage, both as individuals, in our companies, and as an industry. And I found it hugely inspirational, as so many others did. So I think a fitting end, and thank you so much to Global Choices, not only for your sponsorship today, but for that great speaker that you proposed and that we used at the end. That brings us to the close of this edition of InsureTalk. As a reminder, all the information that you need is at insuretalk.co.za. There's been some fantastic social media coverage, as always, by our media partner, FA News. So if you're not following them, please do so for some highlights and updates. There's a wrap-up of this event every time on CN&CO's website, where you can get a blog summarizing all of it. We load it on YouTube for people who are unable to join today and then want to get their CPD hours afterwards. But a massive thank you to Global Choices, to FA News, to the FIA, and to all our speakers today for your knowledge sharing, for your inspiration, and for making us all be very proud to be a member of the insurance industry. We'll see you next month. Until then, good luck with your innovation, servicing our clients, and doing the amazing work of insurance. Thanks very much, everybody.